I had searched deep within my heart and spirit, and I wanted to make a change and move to a new plateau in my life. And
Prince was a genius, a rule breaker, and a legend. But behind the scenes, he had a secret list of artists he couldn't stand. Some were global icons, others were chart-topping stars. One covered his song and made it a hit. Another mocked his height on live TV. One even tried to turn his own sound into their brand. From Madonna to Justin Timberlake to Sinead O'Connor, these were the names that made Prince furious. Why? The reasons will shock you. These are the 7 artists Prince hated the most, revealed at last. Join us. Madonna. Did Prince really call Madonna fake, soulless, and not sexy to her face at his own after-party? Yes. According to multiple witnesses, he changed song lyrics while staring directly at her, and Madonna walked out immediately. Despite being 2 of the biggest icons of their generation, their relationship was anything but harmonious. In fact, behind the glitter, stage lights, and carefully curated personas was a bitter artistic standoff that lasted decades and was far more personal than the public ever knew. It started innocently enough. In the mid-1980s, Warner Brothers reportedly floated the idea of pairing Madonna and Prince for a high-profile duet. On paper, it made sense. 2 boundary-pushing superstars at the height of their fame, both signed to the same label, both redefining gender, sex, and power in pop music. But Prince allegedly dismissed the idea immediately. According to his longtime sound engineer Susan Rogers, Prince shrugged off the suggestion with a cutting remark. "She's got about as much musicality as this soundboard." From that moment on, things never really recovered. While they did have brief musical interactions, Prince played guitar on Madonna's track Love Song from her Like a Prayer album. The creative tension was always there. Their personalities were just too different. Prince was a control-obsessed perfectionist who spent hours tweaking every second of a song, while Madonna was a master of calculated reinvention, often using controversy as a launchpad. To Prince, Madonna wasn't really an artist. She was a strategist. Was this rivalry about music, or was it something deeper? In 1987, Prince told a journalist, "Musical innovation is dying because people are more concerned with selling images than creating them." He didn't mention names, but insiders believed it was a veiled jab at Madonna, who was dominating MTV with provocative visuals and public stunts. At the time, she had reinvented herself yet again, moving from lace and rosaries to a more confrontational, sexually explicit image that Prince reportedly found shallow and attention-seeking. Their dynamic hit another low in 1994. Madonna attended one of Prince's famous after-shows in Los Angeles. According to multiple witnesses, Prince changed the lyrics of his song Sexy MF while looking directly at her, altering them to "She's not sexy." Moments later, Madonna walked out. Was it petty? Yes. Was it deliberate? Absolutely. But here's where it gets interesting. For all his alleged distaste, Prince still seemed to be watching her closely. When he changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol in 1993, a rebellion against his record label, Madonna cheekily referred to him in interviews as the artist formerly known as Relevant. She later clarified that she admired his musical genius, but the jab stuck. Prince didn't respond publicly, but insiders say he was not amused. Why did Prince dislike Madonna so much? It wasn't just ego, it was philosophy. He believed that music had to be born out of something raw and vulnerable. He lived in the studio, refused to lip-sync, played over 25 instruments, and demanded perfection from everyone around him. Madonna, by contrast, was the queen of spectacle. Her performances were heavily choreographed, built for visual shock, not musical improvisation. And for Prince, that was sacrilege. In private, Prince reportedly told his drummer, Bobby Z, "She knows exactly what she's doing. Every move, every outfit, every word. Nothing is real." Michael Bolton. In a packed rehearsal room, Prince pointed at a radio playing Michael Bolton and snapped, "Turn that off. He wouldn't know soul if it slapped him in his processed hair." Harsh? Absolutely. But Prince wasn't joking. He meant every word. That offhand comment, allegedly made in the early 1990s, spread through industry circles like wildfire. It wasn't just a personal dig. It was the beginning of one of the most unexpected and under-the-radar rivalries in modern pop history. So why did Prince, a genre-bending innovator who could shred a guitar solo 1 minute and compose an orchestral suite the next, dislike Michael Bolton, a balladeer known for emotional love songs and commercial success? Well, Bolton's brand of sanitized, radio-friendly soul was everything Prince stood against. Prince reportedly viewed Bolton's success not as a triumph of artistry, but as a symptom of an industry that rewarded imitation over innovation. While Prince was recording concept albums in locked studios, experimenting with complex time signatures and analog equipment, Bolton was topping charts with polished covers of classic soul songs that, in Prince's view, stripped out all the grit. The specific trigger, according to music journalist Alan Light, may have been Bolton's 1991 cover of "When a Man Loves a Woman." The song became a massive hit, winning over both fans and critics. But Prince allegedly found the version hollow, emotionally flat, overproduced, and disconnected from the pain that originally gave the song its power. It was, to Prince, a surface-level performance dressed up as soul. But was this just artistic snobbery? Not entirely. Prince often spoke about the commodification of black music, how the industry had a history of packaging black sounds for white audiences, often with watered-down emotion and no recognition of the culture that birthed it. Bolton, who was immensely popular in the adult contemporary scene, became an unintentional symbol of that very problem. In an interview with a Dutch magazine in 1993, Prince reportedly said, "There's people who take the heart out of music, sterilize it, and sell it back to you." He didn't mention Bolton by name, but insiders who knew the context of his frustrations pointed directly to artists like him, those who borrowed soul but left the struggle behind. For Prince, the difference wasn't just musical, it was moral. And it didn't stop with just one quote. At an industry event in 1994, Prince reportedly avoided being photographed with Bolton, even going so far as to whisper to an assistant, "Some associations you can't wash off." Ultimately, the feud wasn't personal in the usual sense. There was no tabloid scandal, no leaked phone call, no war of words, but it was absolutely real. Prince didn't hate Michael Bolton the person. He hated what he represented: the dilution of soul, the triumph of safety over risk, and a music industry more obsessed with formulas than feelings. And for Prince, that was more than enough. Eric Clapton. In 2004, Prince walked onto the stage at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, picked up his guitar, and delivered a jaw-dropping solo during a tribute to George Harrison's "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." By the time he tossed his guitar into the air and walked off without even looking back, the message was clear. This wasn't just a performance, it was a challenge. Many in the crowd saw it as Prince firing a shot directly at one man in particular: Eric Clapton. But what could possibly cause tension between two legendary guitarists? After all, Clapton was a blues rock pioneer. Prince, a genre-defying icon. They were both virtuosos, both worshipped by millions. The answer lies in what each of them represented. To Clapton, music was about discipline, tradition, and staying true to blues roots. To Prince, music was about evolution, reinvention, and breaking rules. And when those two worldviews collided, it got personal. The friction began in the mid-1980s, not long after Purple Rain made Prince a global phenomenon. During a 1985 interview with Rolling Stone, Clapton was asked about Prince's rising fame. According to several accounts, Clapton downplayed the hype, allegedly describing Prince as all flash, no substance. He reportedly added that real blues takes life experience, not just technical skill. The remark didn't sit well with Prince at all. And Prince didn't just argue back. He showed the world who was boss. Remember that Hall of Fame solo? It wasn't just a tribute. It was, by many insider accounts, Prince's way of publicly asserting his place among the guitar gods. Watch it closely. Notice how he waits his turn. Notice how he lets the solo simmer. And then notice how he detonates the stage with a final run that left even Tom Petty staring in disbelief. According to Prince's longtime collaborator, Sheila E., he told his band before the performance, "Tonight, they'll know I don't just wear purple. I play it." But this wasn't just about ego. At its core, the tension reflected a deep philosophical divide. Clapton worshipped the guitar as an instrument of purity, of homage. His roots in British blues and reverence for players like B.B. King and Robert Johnson meant he saw the guitar as a sacred extension of a very specific tradition. Prince saw the guitar as a weapon, a tool to shock, to bend genres, to obliterate expectations. He didn't play blues, rock, funk, or pop. He played Prince. In a rare 2009 interview with a guitar magazine, Prince was asked about blues influences. He replied, "Some people worship their guitars. I make mine worship me." For Prince, the instrument was a servant to whatever sound he wanted to create. That kind of thinking clashed directly with Clapton's purist ideals. The thing is, Prince didn't want to be the next Jimi Hendrix. He wanted to be something no one could define. That freedom, that refusal to stay in a box, made some critics, and perhaps even some legends, uncomfortable. And then there's the elephant in the room: race. Prince, as a black artist in the mainstream rock world, often faced an uphill battle to be taken seriously in genres dominated by white musicians. Clapton, ironically, built much of his fame on interpreting and repackaging black blues music. So when Clapton allegedly dismissed Prince as style over substance, it wasn't just one artist throwing shade. It was a symbolic dismissal of everything Prince represented: genre fluidity, black excellence, defiance of the establishment. Prince never directly addressed Clapton again. No diss tracks, no public statements, just silence, and, of course, performances. But he left behind one particularly brutal quote in a 2010 interview. When asked about Clapton's guitar prowess, Prince reportedly said, "Eric's technically proficient, sure. But has he ever made you dance? Has he ever made you want to change your name or question your sexuality? Music should transform you, not just impress you." That was the difference. Clapton wanted to impress. Prince wanted to transcend. And that's exactly what he did. Justin Timberlake. Prince once told a member of his band, "He's taking my whole vibe," and not even acknowledging where it came from. The he in question? Justin Timberlake. What started as a few subtle jabs turned into a quiet but unmistakable feud, with Prince reportedly harboring deep frustration over what he saw as artistic theft, disrespect, and hollow showmanship hiding behind a polished pop image. The tension began bubbling in the early 2000s when Timberlake broke away from NSYNC and released his solo debut, Justified. The album, produced heavily by Pharrell Williams and Timbaland, carried an unmistakable echo of Prince's signature Minneapolis sound. Tight, funky beats, falsetto vocals, and slick synth-driven production. While Timberlake was praised for his fresh take on R&B, Prince saw something very different. A blueprint he had created being repackaged, without credit or context. Here's a question. What do you do when a rising star borrows your entire aesthetic, and the world applauds him like he invented it? For Prince, the answer was simple. You speak with style and silence, but when necessary, you cut deep. In 2006, Timberlake's single Sexy Back was dominating the charts. At a post-Emmys party, Prince reportedly addressed a crowd and said, "Sexy never left." It was more than just a quip. It was a shot across the bow, a reminder that Timberlake's biggest hit was built on a foundation Prince had laid decades earlier. Timberlake responded the following year with the single "Give It To Me," featuring a line that many interpreted as a direct clapback. "If sexy never left, then why is everybody on my stuff?" The lyric made headlines. Fans saw it as a bold move, but insiders say Prince was less amused. According to longtime collaborator Jimmy Jam, Prince viewed Timberlake's response not just as cocky, but as confirmation that Timberlake had crossed a line without understanding what made that line sacred in the first place. This wasn't just a battle over style, it was a matter of substance. Prince had spent his life fighting for control over his work, his image, and his name. Timberlake, in Prince's view, represented a newer generation of artists more focused on performance and branding than legacy or artistic integrity. One was a relentless craftsman who built his sound in solitude. The other, a pop juggernaut polished by hitmakers. And to Prince, that distinction meant everything. But what really sealed the animosity was an incident at the 2007 Golden Globes. When Prince won an award but wasn't present to accept it, Timberlake took the stage and mockingly crouched down to the microphone. An obvious joke about Prince's height. It got laughs, but it also drew a firm line. "Some things you don't joke about," Prince reportedly told a bandmate afterward. That moment wasn't funny to him. It was insulting. And then came the Super Bowl. In 2018, 2 years after Prince's death, Timberlake performed the halftime show in Minneapolis, Prince's hometown. During the performance, Timberlake projected a giant image of Prince onto a screen and played a brief duet. Fans and critics were divided. Some called it a touching tribute. Others saw it as hypocritical and tone-deaf, given their history. Even members of Prince's inner circle expressed discomfort, noting that Prince had explicitly stated he didn't want to be represented posthumously as a hologram or visual projection. And yet, there it was, broadcast to millions. So, was this a one-sided feud? Not exactly. Timberlake always acknowledged Prince as a genius, even expressing admiration in interviews. But for Prince, admiration without respect didn't mean much. He valued originality, influence, and credit. And in Timberlake's rise, he saw a pop industry that rewarded mimicry over mastery. Here's something to think about. Was Prince threatened by Timberlake's success? Or was he mourning the erosion of a standard he spent his life defending? When artists borrow from icons without truly understanding the source, it's not homage, it's erosion. And Prince wasn't about to let his legacy fade quietly. What do you think? Did Prince have a right to be upset? Or was he reading too much into it? Let us know in the comments. Michael Jackson. Prince once walked out of a meeting with Michael Jackson's team and said, "I don't let people play me like that." The plan? A duet for Jackson's Bad album. The problem? Prince didn't want to sing a song where the first line was, "Your butt is mine." That line, seemingly harmless in a pop song, was enough to ignite one of the most legendary silent rivalries in music history. The world saw them as twin icons. Both were genre-bending, groundbreaking, and insanely talented. But behind the scenes, Prince and Michael Jackson were not friends. Their relationship was marked by competition, creative tension, and subtle jabs that spanned decades. They weren't openly hostile, but they were locked in a Cold War that shaped their careers and rewrote pop history. What happens when two of the most powerful stars on Earth both want to be the one? You get decades of silent tension, denied collaborations, and public mind games. When Jackson approached Prince about joining Bad, he envisioned the two of them trading verses in an explosive meeting of musical legends. But Prince read the lyrics and backed out immediately. In a later interview, he laughed, "Who's going to sing that to who? Because you sure aren't singing it to me, and I sure ain't singing it to you." That wasn't just a rejection. It was a message. I don't play second to anyone. Their differences weren't just lyrical. They were ideological. Jackson carefully crafted a public persona, built around fantasy, global unity, and mass appeal. Prince, on the other hand, prided himself on being mysterious, unpredictable, and creatively free. While Jackson leaned into commercial dominance and high-budget music videos, Prince shunned formulas and built his own kingdom, right down to a private recording compound in Minnesota. In 1983, during James Brown's now legendary concert at the Beverly Theater, both Michael and Prince were in attendance. Brown invited them each on stage. Michael, polished and precise, wowed the crowd. Prince, in contrast, stumbled through a chaotic guitar solo, knocked over a streetlight prop, and left in a limo without saying a word. Some say it was a power move gone wrong. Others say it was a calculated act of rebellion. Either way, it cemented the myth. These two weren't meant to share a stage. There's another layer to the rivalry that's often overlooked: how Jackson's massive success put pressure on Prince's label and team. After Thriller exploded in 1982, Warner Brothers pushed Prince to deliver a hit that could compete. The result was Purple Rain, an artistic masterpiece that succeeded on its own terms. But the industry always kept comparing the two. Sales, tours, charts. It wasn't just music, it was metrics. And those comparisons irritated Prince, who didn't believe in measuring art by numbers. According to music journalist Alan Leeds, Prince once said, "Michael's a great entertainer, but he doesn't write his music. He doesn't play multiple instruments. He doesn't produce his records." It wasn't jealousy. It was about values. Prince believed that real artistry came from total control. Writing, producing, arranging, performing. Anything less, to him, was manufactured, and Jackson's assembly line perfection, no matter how popular, didn't impress him. Despite their differences, Jackson never publicly criticized Prince. In fact, he praised his talent more than once. But Prince remained cool, guarded, and elusive. When Jackson died in 2009, Prince didn't attend the memorial. Was that coldness rooted in resentment or respect held at a distance? That's the mystery. Two men at the top circling each other in orbit, but never touching down on common ground. Black-eyed peas. That's not music. That's a marketing meeting. Those are the exact words Prince reportedly said after walking out of an event where Will.i.am was DJing. The event was barely 10 minutes in. And that wasn't the only time Prince made his opinion known about the Black-Eyed Peas. Because what they represented to him was everything wrong with the direction mainstream music was heading. Prince never minced words when it came to what he considered the erosion of soul and artistry. He believed music should move you, challenge you, and reflect something true. And in his view, the Black-Eyed Peas were the opposite of that. They were catchy, they were commercial, But to Prince, they were also manufactured, pre-packaged, predictable. It wasn't personal. He just didn't think it was real. According to multiple insiders, Prince declined opportunities to appear in shared promotional shoots or televised retrospectives that would have featured both him and the Peas. In one case, he was invited to participate in a Super Bowl segment celebrating past and future halftime performers. He declined, not out of scheduling issues, but reportedly because the Peas were involved. The tension really started building in 2009 when the Black Eyed Peas were everywhere. Boom, boom, pow, I got a feeling, meet me halfway. They were dominating radio and breaking digital records. But to Prince, their sound symbolized a creative crisis. Tracks were heavily auto-tuned, digitally quantized, and produced to hit every marketable beat possible. In a 2010 interview, Prince said, "Music isn't supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to make you feel something." Let's pause here and break down what Prince meant by quantized. In music production, quantizing is a process that digitally snaps notes or beats to a grid, so everything stays perfectly in time. It's used to clean up imperfections, but in Prince's eyes, those imperfections were the soul. They were what made music human. He once told a studio engineer, "If the drummer's not late once in a while, how do you know he's alive?" That philosophy clashed hard with the Peas' high gloss, club-ready sound. Another moment that widened the gap was the Grammy Awards in 2010. The Peas performed a high-energy medley with lasers, choreography, and digital overlays. Prince, watching from backstage with his band The New Power Generation, reportedly shook his head and muttered, "Some people make music. Some people manufacture it." He wasn't impressed with spectacle. He wanted substance. And then came the Super Bowl. In 2011, the Peas headlined the halftime show, 4 years after Prince had delivered what many still consider the greatest Super Bowl performance of all time, in a literal downpour. According to a production staffer, Prince was asked to contribute to a commemorative montage and again declined, saying, "I already said everything I needed to say, in the rain." He believed his art spoke louder than any interview or endorsement. What's interesting is that Will.i.am often praised Prince in interviews. He called him an innovator and a musical genius. But Prince never returned the compliment. He didn't hate them personally. He hated what they stood for. To him, the Peas were proof that the music industry had shifted from sound to brand, from groove to algorithm. Sinead O'Connor. Prince once invited Sinead O'Connor to his house, then allegedly chased her through the hallway, threw something at her, and tried to hit her with a pillow filled with something heavy. That's not a rumor. That's what O'Connor herself later claimed in interviews. And it wasn't just a bizarre personal clash. It was the fallout from a musical collaboration that exploded into one of the most surreal and uncomfortable feuds in pop history. The irony? Their connection started with one of the most beautiful ballads ever recorded. Nothing Compares To. You was written by Prince in the mid-1980s for a side project, The Family. But it barely made a dent at the time. It wasn't until Sinead O'Connor covered the song in 1990, stripped down, haunting, raw, that it became a global phenomenon. Her version topped charts in multiple countries, and the emotional video, featuring a single close-up shot of her face with real tears, made it iconic. It was the kind of breakout hit most artists dream of. But for Prince, it marked the beginning of a very personal grudge. Here's a hook. How does a songwriter go from letting someone cover his music to allegedly threatening them in his living room? The answer lies in control, and how deeply Prince valued it. Prince was known for being fiercely protective of his work. He famously changed his name to a symbol in a battle with Warner Brothers over ownership of his music. So when O'Connor's version of Nothing Compares to You became a worldwide hit without his involvement, it rubbed him the wrong way. She didn't ask for his blessing. She didn't invite him to perform it with her. And worst of all, she made it hers. In interviews years later, O'Connor revealed that Prince had summoned her to his house after the song became a hit. She described it as a deeply uncomfortable meeting that escalated quickly. According to her, he scolded her for swearing in interviews, demanded that she stop cursing in public, and insisted she join his spiritual group. When she refused, the tone shifted. O'Connor claimed that he became aggressive, first with words, then with actions. She said she tried to leave, but he followed her outside and a physical altercation nearly broke out. He got quite violent, she said. I had to escape. Prince never publicly commented on the incident, and his associates either downplayed or avoided discussing it. But O'Connor repeated the story in several interviews over the years, always sticking to the same details. So what was this really about? Why would Prince react so strongly to someone covering his song? According to people close to him, it wasn't about money. He earned royalties from the track. It wasn't even about credit. O'Connor had always acknowledged that he wrote it. It was about control, authorship, and artistic intent. Prince reportedly disliked her version. He thought it lacked the groove and balance of the original. He saw it as emotionally manipulative, leaning too heavily on sadness without the musical complexity he had written into it. Prince also had issues with how the music video was presented. He believed that the power of the song was being used to sell vulnerability in a way that didn't align with his vision. He once said in an interview, "Music should elevate you. It should not leave you curled up on the floor." That wasn't a direct reference to O'Connor, but fans and insiders connected the dots. He didn't want people crying to his music. He wanted them to ascend with it. Another layer of tension was ideological. Both artists were rebels, but their styles of rebellion clashed. Prince was spiritual, cryptic, and indirect. O'Connor was blunt, confrontational, and political. She tore up a photo of the Pope live on Saturday Night Live. Prince, while deeply religious himself, would never have done anything so openly provocative. They were two different kinds of defiant, and neither appreciated the other's form. Years later, O'Connor described the incident as one of the strangest experiences of her life. It was disturbing, she said, because I loved him as an artist. That may be the saddest part of this feud. It wasn't born out of jealousy or competition, but out of a failed moment of creative connection that went completely off the rails. There was no reconciliation, no public conversation, no joint performance. Prince never invited her to Paisley Park again. And when he died in 2016, O'Connor did mourn him, but she didn't revise her account. He was a brilliant musician, she said, but he was a very troubled person. Was Prince trying to protect the integrity of his work? Or did he simply lose control when someone else took the spotlight with his creation? That's up to you. Let us know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Click the next video for more exciting content.